Good morning and welcome to DC. Do I have any Tennesseans in this group? All right. I love it. And I want to say a thank you, a heartfelt thank you to you all for focusing on this issue of human trafficking. You know, this is indeed modern day slavery. And there are steps that can be taken. And it is now a $270 billion a year global business. Think about that. $270 billion a year on trafficking people. And it is primarily women and children. And the estimate is that in the US, there are 1 million individuals that are victims of human trafficking in our country. It is in every state. It is in every town. It is in every single community. And I appreciate what Secretary Noem was saying about foster care, because we know many times when you're looking at the virtual space, it is foster children who are the most vulnerable. And they're meeting these traffickers and these pedophiles in the virtual space. So I thank you for the work that you are doing to raise awareness. And I want to ask you all to join us in legislation that we are pushing forward that will help make a difference in this and to end this. And that should be our goal, is to end human trafficking, not only in the US, but on the face of the earth. That should be our goal. Now, I want to run through a few of these bills so that you have them. You can be on social media about them. You can talk about them. Now, the REPORT Act, pardon me, the REPORT Act, we got signed into law last year. This is legislation that I had. It was completely bipartisan, and it requires social media to report to NCMEC when there is child sexual abuse material, when there is trafficking, when there are these bad actors on their website. They have to report it to NCMEC. This is not a may, it is a shall, which is a mandate. So we were pleased to get that signed into law last year. We also have the End Child Trafficking Now Act and the PRINCE Act. Both of these have been included in the big, beautiful bill, funding for these. And what the End Child Trafficking Now Act will do is require DNA testing at our ports of entry when a child presents and they are not with a relative. Now, this previously was done at our ports of entry, and the Biden administration, in their push to bring more illegal immigrants into the country, they ended it. I said, why did you end DNA testing? And they said, it took too much time. I said, how much time did it take? 45 minutes. 45 minutes to save the life of a child. And we knew that over a third of the children that were presenting with adults they were not related to were being trafficked. So we were able to fund that, to restart that. Also, there is a practice of child recycling that is used by some of the cartels who have gotten into the human trafficking business. And this PRINCE Act will allow fingerprints. So not only will we have the DNA testing, we will have the fingerprints of these children so that if they've come through once and they come back again, then we can validate for sure that that is a practice that is happening and that that child is being abused and that child is being used in that trafficking. We also have the Gracie Act that we are doing. One of the things is I have worked on this issue of caring for children and making certain that children are not trafficked and are going to be protected. We found out that when Child Protective Services does interviews, they do not always record those interviews. So many times a child is going to be interviewed several times by different agencies over and over, and this causes those children to relive that nightmare. So this will mandate that they record these interviews of the children and adults, and then that child is not having to relive the horrors of what they have physically felt and been the abuse that they have lived through. So the Gracie Act, we're looking to move forward through Judiciary Committee. And, you know, one of the things is that as we record these interviews and that as law enforcement has access to this, sometimes they find out there are other children that are involved, that are being abused. And they have the ability to more quickly identify these perpetrators and get them locked up and get them prosecuted. And that is what we all want to see, to get them out of our communities. One thing that Senator Klobuchar and I realized as we were working on some of our legislation is that the Department of Justice and the U.S. government has never established a national human trafficking database. You have data that is kept locally, you have data that is kept in states, but there is no national repository or place that we keep this information so we can follow these patterns and do analysis and then find children that may be in some states. So we have legislation that would require the establishment of a national human trafficking database. So, and we know that having that information is going to be vitally important. And let me give you an example of where we think this could be helpful. We found out in the Biden administration over 2 years ago that there were 77,000 children that they could not find. And then it became 150,000 children. And then we found out the number was 300,000 children. And then we found out it is even north of that. So having a national database, as our wonderful Homeland Security Secretary was just talking about, they're conducting rescues as they are picking up these criminal illegal aliens to get them out of the country. And being able to know where these children are, they have apprehended and saved over 10,000 of these children. They have been rescued. So putting this into a database would give us a repository that we could work from. Now, we've also got the Combating Trafficking in Transportation Act. This is working its way through the House and then should be ready to go to the President's desk very soon. And this will give states flexibility so that they can put signage in their welcome centers and their rest stops, saying, if you need help, here is a number to call. If you are being trafficked, you can walk to this officer. You can get help. And we know from what we've seen with putting signs in public areas, this helps people who are in distress to know where to go for help. And the Save Girls Act is legislation that we have that puts grants to local law enforcement. I'm sure many of you have worked with your local law enforcement and have said, look, we want to work with you to raise awareness, to educate people, and to help with rescues. And not all communities have agencies or coalitions that work on this. In the Nashville area, there is the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition, and they work with law enforcement on conducting these rescues and saving women and children that are being trafficked. So this is grants directly to local law enforcement to help them as they work to save these children. And of course, we're continuing our work with the Kids Online Safety Act. And I know many of you, thank you. Many of you have supported this legislation. Senator Blumenthal and I got it out of the Senate last year on a 92-3 vote. We were really thrilled with that vote. And we are working, it's reintroduced this year. We are looking forward to having the House move forward with it. But it is imperative that we put the burden on social media platforms, which is where most children meet a drug dealer, meet a pedophile, end up finding somebody that traffics them. And it is imperative that we put the responsibility on social media and make certain that there is a toolbox for parents and kids to detach from these algorithms, and that there is going to be a mechanism for parents and kids to report these bad actors. So we are grateful to you all for your activism. We're grateful that you are here in DC. We're grateful for your support, and let's end the practice of human trafficking. Thank you all so much.